Chris Taylor says, why should I listen to you? You are a hypocrite. In what way am I a hypocrite? A hypocrite means somebody who is undercritical. Where am I undercritical? Am I a hypocrite about my own moral code? There's no question to some degree I'm a hypocrite about my own moral code, but that's because I have a moral code. And if I didn't have a moral code, I wouldn't be a hypocrite. But I try to live up to my moral code, and I think most conservatives do too. You're going to have to do better than that, Chris. If you want to say, why should I listen to you? You're a hypocrite. What are you talking about? I think the only place the left has what appears to be, at least to their eyes, a legitimate claim of hypocrisy on the part of conservatives is with the abortion issue, and to some degree the gay rights issue. So I'll give you an answer on both of those, at least my personal answer. The gay rights issue is, you conservatives say you want to be left alone and that everybody should be allowed to do what they want to do, so it's none of your business if two men get married. My personal response is, I agree with that statement. It is none of my business. I don't care if gay people get married. It doesn't bother me the slightest. I've been around theater people my whole life. I know a lot of gay people, and just like everybody else I know, some of them are very nice and some of them are complete jerks. Just depends on the individual, really. I don't have any business to tell them what to do with their lives. I don't have any business to tell them whether they can get married or not. I don't care. This is me speaking. I don't care. However, I do care, very much care, about whether or not I am going to be forced to conform to anything that I agree with or disagree with by either the coercive force of the government or by the softer but probably more pervasive coercive force of the culture. So while I don't particularly care whether people get married or not, they will not be able to tell me whether or not I approve of it. I don't care, and I don't think I have any right to tell them whether they get married or not, but they cannot force me to accept anything that I don't want to accept philosophically, religiously, or spiritually, or whatever. And there's a much deeper and more important issue than that, and that is this. When you get to this conflict between Christianity or people who have religious objections to gay marriage, what they, I think, mostly are concerned about is they do not want to be told that they have to accept something that they believe to be a sin. And of that, I am so deep in agreement, I can't even begin to tell you. So do I want it both ways? I don't want it both ways. I have a consistent moral belief system. I don't believe in coercion, which means that if you get the government out of the marriage business, you don't have any problems. If the government is out of the marriage business, you don't have any problems. If two gay people want to get married and they can find a congregation that wants to marry them, fine. But if there's a congregation that says that we think homosexuality is a sin, that's fine too. And just as I don't think those Christians in the backwoods of Alabama, to pick the most facile example I can find, have any business telling whether two gay men get married in San Francisco. Likewise, I don't think two gay men in San Francisco have any business telling people in the backwoods of Alabama what they can believe or not believe. If people want to believe that it's a sin and an abomination, that's their right. And so much of this pushback on the part of this sort of anti-gay agenda is in fact pushing back against a political agenda that's not about equality or acceptance. It's about making you conform to their belief system about all this stuff. And when you realize that the population of America, the gay population, is probably 2 or 3%, and most Americans think it's 25%, you realize that there is in fact a serious effort on the part of the homosexual political activists to remodel and re-engineer Americans' attitudes about things that they have no business doing. None. So when I think about the gay marriage issue, I consult my Constitution. Does it say anything about gay marriage? It does not. It's not a federal issue. It doesn't say anything about straight marriage either, by the way, which means that's also not an issue. And as usual, you can blame the Democrats for this. You didn't need marriage licenses before because the Democrats wanted to get the government involved in marriage because the Democrats didn't want black people marrying white people. All of this is a result of these marriage licenses and all this government intrusion and legitimacy of marriage through the government as a result of the Democrats trying to keep black people down, which is what they've done for their entire history, starting in the Civil War when they backed the slavery, backed the Confederacy, backed the Ku Klux Klan, backed the Jim Crow laws, backed the turning of the fire hoses on those civil rights protesters. They're all Democrats. And now they're trying to keep them on the slavery plantation so that they can harvest their votes. That's why we got into trouble with the gay marriage thing. I say let people alone. And letting them alone means to gay people, oh, it means letting us get married, right? Yes. It also means letting people think that you're monsters and you don't have a right to change their mind. Either they find your behavior personally appalling or they find your behavior religiously appalling. That's as much their business as you doing what you want to do is yours. So you just have to live with it. That's the way it goes. No coercion. Just get the coercion out of it. You're just stuck with being offended. No one has a right not to be offended. The second thing is the abortion issue, and that's a super tough one until it's suddenly not. When you talk about when you talk to liberals and they'll say you conservatives are such hypocrites, you talk about leaving people alone and getting the government out of our lives. Who are you to say that I can't go get an abortion? I can't go get an abortion because it's my body, and that's where the lie is right there. You're going to stop it right there. It's not your body. It is my body. No, it's not. It's not your body. It's in your body, but it's not your body. You take the cells out of that fetus and you do a genetic test on that fetus, and you will come up with a completely, absolutely unique individual. That unborn child that woman is carrying, that fetus, that embryo, whatever you want to call it, has its unique genetic information, its own genetic structure. It is a unique individual, and I could take its cell from that fetus and I could take a cell from that woman and absolutely distinguish them 100% of the time. It's not your body. It is not your body. It's not your cells. It's not your genome. It's not your genetics. It's different. It's different. So the question is it a person, yes or no? Well, if it's a person half an hour before the baby would have been born, or a half an hour after it's born, if it doesn't change between a half hour after it's born and a half hour before it's born, then it looks like it's a person. And since birth is just basically two milestones, conception and birth, there's nothing in between. There's not like all of a sudden on day 39 something magical happens. Nope, it's a gradient between conception and birth. If it's a baby when it's born, then it's a baby all the way back. And that's just the logical outcome of it. So it's a tough one. I mean, morally it's not tough. I think morally it's very simple. But people disagree with this argument. And then you get back into the coercive power of the government again. And frankly, if I could get the coercive power of the government out of my life, I'd put up with some of these things and I would fight the abortion battle on a moral basis rather than a legal one. There you go. And somebody in the comment section says, do you have a right to, what about your right to marry your dog? I can marry my office chair if I want to. I mean, seriously. Look, if I find a preacher and forget, like I said, imagine you get the government out of this, right? And if I can find a religious figure or somebody to claim that I'm married to my dog, does that degrade your marriage, or does that make me look like a flaming lunatic? Which one? I mean, honestly, I understand the work that marriage is, and there's one. I will say this in defense of traditional marriage. This is one thing I will go all the way to the bat on. I'm in favor of if you want to call yourself. I just wish they would just not use the word marriage, because the lexicological argument is powerful, strong to me. In other words, the people who are saying, no, marriage, the definition of marriage is a man and a woman. I completely agree with that. 100% I agree with that. Do you take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife? Do you take this to be your husband? The definition of a husband is somebody who marries a wife. The definition of a wife is somebody who marries a husband. Having two husbands in the same marriage is not marriage. I'm kind of okay with, in fact, I'm completely okay with something that's completely legally equal, spiritually equal, fine, I don't care. But this business about the vocabulary argument is very powerful to me. And I'll give you another example of the vocabulary argument, in the sense that if it's a man and a woman, if it's not a man and a woman, it's not marriage by definition. I think that's a really strong argument. It's just a question of the word, but if you start allowing words to be destroyed, then you're done. So here's a great example. I think this is really how I feel about it. Let's say that I have an Uncle Bob. I don't, but let's say I did. And let's say Uncle Bob was a transvestite. And let's say Uncle Bob liked dressing up in women's clothes. Okay, that's what Uncle Bob does. Now, if Uncle Bob says to me, I want to dress in women's clothes all the time, and I'd like you to call me Aunt Bobby, then depending on how I feel about Uncle Bob, I'd probably be more than happy to call him Aunt Bobby, or call her Aunt Bobby. And if this person said to me, I see myself as a female, would you mind referring to me as she? Look, I'm actually pretty easy to get along, believe it or not. I really don't much care. It doesn't take a lot of skin off my nose for me to call somebody she if they want to get called she. But here's where we draw the line. If Uncle Bob then says to me, I've had a sex change operation, I've had a complete sex change operation, sex reassignment surgery, I don't have the male parts anymore, and we've used them to fashion versions of female parts. So therefore, Bill, since I have this woman's body now, and since I have a female identity, you have to agree that I'm a woman. And that's where I get off the bus. Because you're not, Bob, or Aunt Bobby, you're not a woman. You're a male who has psychological propensities that makes you identify with the feminine gender. I don't care. You've gone through a series of surgical procedures to snip things up and open up things here and move things around there, and I don't care about that either. That's none of my business. I don't care. But if you are asking me to say that by doing these two things you have become a woman, no, Bob, you haven't. Bobby, Aunt Bobby, no. I'm happy to be a get-along guy. I don't care. You want to be called Aunt Bobby? Fine. But if you're asking me to tell you that I have to accept this new version of the reality, then no. That's where I get off. Get off the boat here. Because you're not a woman. Because women have X chromosomes, 2 sets, X and X. Men have X and Y. And you can do whatever you want to yourself. You can have whatever opinion you want about gender. But if I take a cell out of your bloodstream, I'm going to find out that you're a male. So you're a male with psychological unusual tendencies. And you've gone through a series of surgeries. But you're not a woman, Bob. I'm sorry. No, that's where I'm not going to go. So there you go. That's how I feel about it. I'm willing to get along with people and do pretty much whatever makes things easiest, as long as they're not asking me to change the face of reality, because I'm married to reality. I'm married to the truth. That's who I'm married to. I'm married to reality and to telling the truth. And you can do all these things to make you more comfortable, but that doesn't make you a woman, Bob. Sorry. And no matter how many changes you make and no matter how much you wish it were true, you cannot have children. So when you hear these stories about man got pregnant, it's like, oh, really? A man got pregnant? Did he really? Well, it turns out it was a woman who has had some sex reassignment things, who wants to be a man or dresses like a man, that's not a woman. And it's not a man either. So there you go. It's just the truth. And I don't care, Bob, that you really, 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 really want to be a woman, and that it's really, 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 really unfair that you're not. Life isn't fair. I want to be a fighter pilot. 2025 vision right here. Everything else good to go. Nope, that's it. So I'll go fly jets if I can, and if I can afford to buy a jet someday through hard work, then I will work hard, and I'll get as close as I can. As a matter of fact, if I work hard enough and get the kind of performance I might be able to get if I had a ton of money, might even be better than being a fighter pilot. No, it won't actually, because there's nothing as satisfying as watch a communist go into a ball of flames. But nevertheless, you can get close. That's what you get out of life. You get a chance to get close, but you don't always get what you want. And sometimes you don't get what you want very badly, and that's the way it goes. And if you don't accept that, then you probably have other problems that are causing you to become a progressive. And it's all based on your inability to accept the fact that you don't get everything you want. It's basically the philosophy of 3-year-olds. I want this. Well, you can't have it. Well, I want it. Well, you can't have it. Well, if I want it enough, I can have it. No, you can't. There you go.